Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the program. It is exactly a quarter past 9. And also a very big welcome to our listeners in Polokwane on One Nation FM. Welcome to the show, dear good people, and we do hope you'll keep us company for the rest of the day. We are going to be talking about a new COVID variant, and just when I thought it was safe to go out, the World Health Organization has warned that countries across the world of a new and highly mutated COVID 19 subvariant. It has been discovered in about 10 countries. Where does that leave us as South Africans? Are we in line to be affected by this new mutation as well? So let's talk to someone in the know, none other than senior research scientist at the UCT Lung Institute, Dr. Shameem Jaumdally. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam, Julie, and I extend my greeting to everybody listening. Thank you for hosting me again.
Lovely to have you. It's been a long, long time since we last spoke with you, and you indicated you're glad about that because that meant that we were all home safe and dry. But with this new release, this new statement by the World Health Organization, is there something to worry about? They're talking about a new variant. They're telling us that 10 other countries in the Northern Hemisphere have already been affected. What does that say for us here in South Africa? So, first and foremost, let's talk about the new variant.
Sure. So that new variant has a complicated terminology like a lot of those variants have had lately. And just a terminology correction, if you allow me, we do not talk about variants anymore. What we talk about are subvariants. It means that the virus now is all descending from one specific lineage. So we've had Omicron, which was the last variant that we had, before we had Delta, Beta, and many others in the rest of the world. But now, because the mutation is not happening as much as before, it's only one virus that mutates and then spread to the rest of the world. So what we have right now is called a subvariant. It comes from a lineage of the Omicron variant that we had. The scientific naming for it is BA.2.75, and it has been named Centaurus, just to make it easier for people to talk about it, especially laymen. And it has appeared to have mutated in a way that could indicate some major immune escape. So, being unrecognized by vaccine or by the immune system that may have encountered it before. And the worry, I think, is that it is showing a clear growth advantage over other subvariants that they are in India right now. And when we think that there is less testing that is done right now, and that we still actually coming up and finding new subvariant like this emerging, it means that it can become a problem. And just to finish on like the information, the basic information about this subvariant, one thing that we are seeing now over the last 2 years of COVID is that when we do get any form of variant or subvariant that emerges, it generally comes from similar type of area. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to stigmatize these countries, but it is a mere scientific fact that countries like South Africa and India, who have big populations of people who have a compromised immune system. For example, here we have almost 1 in 5 adults living with HIV. These are the countries that have a greatest risk of variant and subvariant emerging. And what we know right now is that this Centaurus has emerged from India,
Uh,
from the look of it.
okay, can I just ask you to speak up a little more loudly if you don't mind? We can't
No
hear
problem.
you. Okay. All right. So you are suggesting that we are at risk, obviously. Um, I'm thinking about, a lot of medical practitioners or medical personnel have been telling us that we're okay in South Africa because the majority of the population have been immunized. But when you get these subvariants, what does that mean? And also, what I have noticed, I don't know you as a medical, practitioner or a medical doctor, what you've picked up is I've seen a lot of people coming down with flu and severe flu. What is that picture telling us? And then how serious is the subvariant?
Sure. So let's tackle the flu first. Okay. So remember that your immune system actually work through an encounter and a memory from an encounter of a microbe. So, for example, we know that the flu season generally comes with winter every year, and the flu, just like we have with COVID right now, is a virus that can changes through mutation that it will experience, like it happens in nature. And because this flu virus has changed so much since, before COVID, so that is 2019, for example, let's take South Africa. And then COVID came around, everybody was wearing masks. There was a closure of border where we did not have an importation because flu is also imported from elsewhere. We did not have an importation of the flu virus into the country for 2020 and 2021's winter. And our body and our immune system kind of forgot what it looked like. So nowadays, and this is also what we're seeing in many places, not only in South Africa but across the world, when people are infected with the flu again, it generally manifests itself with more severe symptoms and an incapacitation that can last a bit longer. So it is normal and it was anticipated that once the flu season gets back into swing like it is now in South Africa, people will generally have a more severe disease. And that is a problem, and this is why we still encourage, especially the older people, pregnant women, to get vaccinated against flu and to also wear a mask if they're going to go out in gathering because you don't want to get that if you know you're vulnerable like that. And when it comes to the severity of that centaurus now, it does escape the immune system. So what you need to understand is that, before our body, before vaccine and before anybody got infected with any of the different forms of COVID that we have known, our body was basically like an open house, open windows, open doors. We had no defense against this because we had never encountered it before. But what has happened now with the advent of vaccination and also with the advent of what we call natural immunity, that is something that people, the protection that people get after they've been infected at least once. It's like this house now has a burglar bars and has an alarm system that will tell him uh, there you are being invaded by this virus now. We've had that before, and this is the defense that you need to actually trigger to make sure that you don't get sick. So because we have reached that level of endemicity where we have so many people who have either been vaccinated or who've been infected before, uh, I am confident that even that centaurus that looks like it's changed to an extent where the body does not recognize it as well as the different subvariant that we've had for Omicron, but we still have a far better protection now than we had, for example, when we were hit by the Delta wave.
Okay, so what you're saying now is no reason to panic. We're not going to see lockdowns because we know globally how it has impacted on the world. People are just beginning to emerge from the severe effects of lockdown. I've also noticed that wherever I go to these days, people are just not wearing masks any longer. But with this new subvariant, do you then think that it would make common sense to continue sanitizing and at least wear a mask because at least you're having some degree of protection against the centaurus?
Listen, what we also know from 2 years of COVID now is that we're going to get waves. And these waves generally come at like specific intervals. For example, right now, we know that waves will hit different places around the world, especially where it's high mobility in the northern hemisphere and in like countries like South Africa in the southern hemisphere where it's more or less busy. It will happen every 6 months. And the reason for this is because one, we will have variants that or subvariants that will emerge because the virus is still transmitting very widely, and in so doing, it is mutating. Okay, and it is the natural cycle of a virus to actually become more transmissible, but also to cause less severe disease. And it is in its advantage to cause less severe disease because in not killing somebody, it is perpetuating a replication cycle and an infection cycle. You have more people that it can actually infect and continue to spread. So what we know is that we are probably expecting another wave in South Africa to start around the month of October. It will have to be started by something that is quite different to what caused the last wave, which was BA.4 and BA.5. And we also know now, with time going on, it's a signal that we are experiencing a shift in a new phase of genuinely living with the virus because more people are actually getting, a protection against it, especially through the infection that happens. So right now, I will preconize and I will advise people to keep using sanitizers because generally it's good. It doesn't protect us only against COVID, but a lot of other microbes that we know
Absolutely.
lie around.
Yes.
With the
Yes.
mask wearing, as I mentioned, I know it can be very uncomfortable. I know a lot of women and younger, like girls and teenagers are happy to be able to wear makeup again and show their face and their smile. But for people who are vulnerable, for the older people, for women who are pregnant, it could be recommended that they keep wearing that, not only against COVID, but also against all the other respiratory infections that are going around right now.
Okay, so Dr. Shameem Jamdali, a few more questions before we wrap up. Is South Africa geared up for this new subvariant? Does that mean we're going to be called on as a nation to go for additional vaccinations? Would they be the regular vaccinations that were administered in the past? Would those work if we still have a supply of those on hand? Should we then go and have ourselves vaccinated? About a month or two ago, there was a call by the health department for the over 50s to go for their third booster. Is that call still ongoing? And then what about our children, the under 12s and the under 5s? Are they at risk, or is this not a serious enough subvariant? Hopefully, it's mild. And if we take all the necessary precautions, that we will be okay.
Yeah, so in terms of what the impact is going to be on South Africa, I think we will be managing pretty well. I want to remind you that the last few variants and subvariants that have been circulating around the world have all come from South Africa.
Oh,
And the last time that we really
yes.
had some form of significant impact on our hospital and in our death rate was in the month of November and December of last year when we had the emergence of Omicron. Since then, we've had another wave that literally did not do much to change the way the health system operates. And we also know that we now have a high level of endemicity that has been reached here. So people all around generally have protection against this virus and the different forms of it. And regarding vaccination, and that's my professional opinion again from what I read and the science that's coming out of immunity around COVID. People who've been infected would generally have protection against severe disease and severe form of the symptoms that is caused by the infection for at least 8 to 10 months. And people who have not been infected or people who have been infected maybe a year and a half ago and who are older means that they are above 50, above 55, people who have a lot of different chronic conditions like diabetes, hypertension, maybe even like a weight problem, and women who are pregnant. These are the people who are still at risk of potentially, even though at a very low, much lower likelihood of getting severe diseases. So these are the people who actually need to consider vaccination if they know that they don't have as much protection as it could have been the case maybe a year or 2 years ago. So that covers the adult. And when it comes to the kids and the teenagers, we're still seeing that it is not causing any major form of severe disease in this population, because we know they're generally younger, they have a better immune system, and they also do not have the different chronic illnesses that generally causes more severe disease in adults. So not a necessity to vaccinate kids, but the one thing that I would like to remind everybody is that the vaccination against all the other childhood diseases and the one that we traditionally have are still very much recommended. And because COVID has actually decreased access to some of these childhood vaccination, we have seen the emergence of different clusters of those childhood diseases across Africa in general. So that I think for me is more important when it comes to vaccinating children than the COVID vaccine.
Okay, and you are so right because I had read about a couple of cases of polio, which obviously we hadn't seen in the past 50 years. And that is exactly what you said. Because of COVID, other vaccinations were not accessible to the general public, and because, of course, lockdown, etc., etc. Finally, in closing, you're not you are reassuring the general public that yes, the subvariant is going to make the rounds. Yes, we in South Africa will be affected, but it's not going to be as serious as in the past. But the vulnerable groups would be doing themselves a favor by going out and getting perhaps the third booster shot. Or if you've never been vaccinated, then perhaps go out and get vaccinated. And hospitals will not be shut down and only open for COVID cases like in the past.
Inshallah not. And across the different hospitals in South Africa now, they are actually considering closing down the COVID wards because they literally like few patients trickling into the system, suffering from respiratory issues due to COVID, or if they're not shutting it down, they're at least downsizing. So for me, that is again one further step into endemicity, and inshallah, I believe that we should not have any big problem with COVID now. Though it's gonna come at least twice a year, for a few more years that we're gonna experience that now.
Inshallah, Ameen. Shukran very much for being with us on the show this morning. Dr. Shameem Jaumdally, Senior Research Scientist at the UCT Lung Institute. Salaam alaikum to you. The time is exactly 9:32 a.m.